Imagine a battlefield. Drones overhead, satellites tracking movement from space, radios crackling with reports, maps changing by the minute, intelligence files piling up faster than anyone can read them. Now imagine a bank trying to spot fraud across millions of transactions happening every second. A hospital juggling patient records, drug supplies, and bed availability during a crisis. A government agency trying to find a threat before it becomes a tragedy. All of these places have one thing in common. They are drowning in data, and they cannot see clearly. This is where Palantir enters the story. Palantir does not sell apps to ordinary people. It is not a social network. It is not an office tool. It does not want your attention or your clicks. What it sells is something far more unusual and far more powerful. Palantir sells the ability to turn messy, chaotic, fragmented data into decisions. And in war, in intelligence, in finance, in policing, in healthcare, and now in artificial intelligence, decisions are power. So today we are going to look at one of the strangest, most controversial, and most quietly influential companies in the world. A company that sounds less like a software vendor and more like a strategic weapon. A company that built its name not by serving consumers, but by serving the institutions that already shape your life, whether you realize it or not. So who exactly is Palantir? On the surface, the answer sounds almost boring. Palantir is a software company that helps organizations analyze large amounts of data. But that description is like saying a fighter jet is a vehicle that goes from point A to point B. Technically true. Completely missing the point. Palantir's earliest and most important customers were not startups or marketing teams. They were governments, intelligence agencies, and defense organizations. Over time, the company expanded into the private sector, into banks, energy companies, hospitals, logistics giants, and manufacturers. But its DNA was shaped by working with institutions where a wrong decision is not a quarterly miss. It is a life lost, a mission failed, a crisis missed. The core product is not a pretty dashboard. It is closer to an operating system for data. It pulls information from many sources, cleans it, links it together, finds patterns inside it, and gives humans a way to act on what they find. The company organizes its work around three main pillars: Gotham, built for governments, defense, and intelligence; Foundry, built for businesses and operations; and AIP, the AI platform, designed to bring artificial intelligence into real workflows where real decisions are made. There is a useful contrast that captures what Palantir actually is. If Google organized the information of the internet, Palantir is trying to organize the information of the institutions that run the world. To really understand Palantir, you cannot start with code. You have to start with fear. The company was born in the aftermath of September 11, 2001, in a moment when the United States government was asking a painful question. We had the data. We had the warnings. Why couldn't we connect them in time? After the attacks, intelligence agencies discovered that pieces of information existed across different databases. Different agencies, different formats, different rooms and different buildings, sometimes even different floors of the same building. None of it was talking to each other. Analysts were drowning in noise and starving for signal. Into this environment stepped Palantir, with a very specific promise. It would not replace human analysts. It would not pretend that an algorithm alone could decide who was a threat. Instead, it would give analysts a way to see connections they might otherwise miss, a way to ask questions of fragmented data and get coherent answers. This is the part most people miss about Palantir's origin. It was not founded to make work more productive. It was founded to help powerful institutions see the whole picture in a world where seeing clearly suddenly felt like a matter of survival. And right at the beginning, the company carried a question it has never escaped from. If a system can help prevent a disaster, how much access should we give it? How much of our world do we hand over to the people watching the screen? Now let's get specific, because this is where most coverage of Palantir gets vague. People throw around words like big data and AI and analytics, and you walk away with no real picture of what the company does. So let me try a cleaner version. Imagine an organization with data scattered everywhere, old Excel files on someone's laptop, legacy databases that nobody fully understands anymore, satellite imagery in one system, field reports in another, sensor data, emails, system logs, customer records, supplier information. None of it lines up. None of it speaks the same language. Palantir's job is to take all of that and turn it into something coherent. The platform connects these sources and starts treating the data as objects with relationships: people, places, vehicles, transactions, events, risks. Suddenly, you can ask the system real questions. What is happening right now? Why is it happening? Who is involved? What changes if I take action A instead of action B? In the age of AI, Palantir is positioning itself as the layer that sits between large language models and real-world action, the translator between what AI suggests and what an organization actually decides to do. Picture how this plays out in different worlds. A military uses it to fuse drone footage, satellite imagery, ground unit positions, and logistics into one operational picture. A factory uses it to find the bottlenecks slowing down production. A hospital uses it to manage beds and supplies during a surge. A bank uses it to spot transactions that look like fraud or money laundering. The pattern is the same everywhere. Take chaos. Make it legible. Help humans decide. This is why Palantir's valuation, its critics, and its admirers are all so loud. Once you understand it as decision infrastructure, the next question is no longer how does it work? The next question is who gets to use it and what do they use it for? That question hits hardest in one specific arena: defense. Because here is the truth about modern war that does not fit neatly into action movies. Modern war is not just about guns, tanks, and missiles. It is increasingly about data. The side that wins is often not the side with the biggest army. It is the side that detects threats first, understands the situation faster, decides more accurately, and coordinates its forces more effectively. And in a real conflict, data comes from an overwhelming number of sources: satellites overhead, drones in the sky, radar arrays, acoustic sensors, intelligence reports from human sources, logistics systems tracking fuel and ammunition, weather data, the positions of friendly units, intercepted signals, open source information from social media and news. The problem is brutally simple. This data is messy. It arrives late. It contradicts itself. It comes in formats that do not match. A commander does not have hours to wait for analysts to reconcile a spreadsheet with a satellite image with a radio intercept. They need a picture. Now. This is what Palantir promises to deliver. Not a magic algorithm that replaces commanders, but an operational picture, a single coherent view of a chaotic battlefield, where humans can see what is happening and make calls in time. And here's the line worth holding on to. In war, the side with more data does not automatically win. The side that turns data into decisions faster wins. That is the gap Palantir is selling into. Not raw information, but the speed and clarity that turn information into action. So let's pause for a second, because up to this point, the story sounds almost flattering. A company that helps institutions see clearly, that helps soldiers come home, that helps hospitals save patients, that helps banks catch criminals. Who could be against that? But this is exactly the moment the story turns, because the same capability that helps a hospital can be turned on a population. The same capability that supports soldiers can shape decisions about who lives and who dies. The same capability that detects risk can be used to build something that starts to look a lot like a surveillance society. The unsettling part of Palantir is not that it can analyze data. We have known that data can be analyzed for decades. The unsettling part is what happens when the institutions using it already have enormous power, and Palantir makes that power faster, smarter, and harder to see from the outside. Once you understand that, you cannot look at this company the same way again. So let's talk about the controversies honestly. The criticisms of Palantir cluster around a few sharp questions, and each of them deserves to be taken seriously rather than waved away. The first is about government surveillance. When a powerful analytics platform is wired into state agencies, you have to ask a set of basic but very uncomfortable questions. What data is being collected? Who has access to it? Are there meaningful checks on how it is used? Do citizens know they are inside the system? In many cases, the answers are unclear, and that lack of clarity is itself part of the problem. The second cluster is about policing and immigration. Palantir has had contracts with law enforcement and immigration agencies, and these have drawn protests from employees, journalists, and civil rights groups. This is sensitive territory because the software is no longer just a back-office tool. It influences who gets stopped, who gets investigated, who gets deported, who gets watched. Real lives, real consequences, often falling on people who never agreed to be inside any system at all. The third is about war technology. Many Silicon Valley companies have spent years trying to maintain a careful image of neutrality, distancing themselves from defense work whenever it became politically inconvenient. Palantir has done the opposite. The company openly embraces its role in defense and explicitly frames working with Western militaries as part of its mission. You can admire the honesty or be alarmed by it, but you cannot accuse Palantir of hiding what it does. And then there is the deepest question of all, the one that artificial intelligence is now sharpening. Accountability. If an AI-powered system recommends a target, a search, a denial of benefits, a flagged transaction, or a course of action, who is responsible when it goes wrong? The engineer who built the model? The officer who approved the action? The government that deployed it? The company that sold the platform? We do not have clear answers, and the technology is moving faster than the law. The fair way to put it is this: Palantir does not create state power or military power. Those existed long before the company. But it can make those forms of power more efficient, more reachable, and harder to push back against. That is not nothing. So how is Palantir actually different from the other tech companies you have heard of? Why does it occupy this strange place in the public imagination, somewhere between a normal software vendor and a quiet superpower? There are roughly 4 reasons. First, the customers. Palantir is not optimizing for the average consumer. It is optimizing for governments, militaries, and very large enterprises. Its products are not designed for someone scrolling on a phone. They are designed for analysts, operators, and decision-makers inside institutions where the wrong call has serious consequences. Second, the workflows. Most software helps you write a memo, send a message, or run a report. Palantir's software sits inside high-stakes operations. We are talking about decisions that affect supply chains, military operations, financial systems, and public health responses. Third, the politics. Most tech companies try to appear neutral, scrubbed of any clear political stance, marketing themselves to everyone. Palantir does not pretend. The company has been openly aligned with Western defense interests and has argued, sometimes loudly, that technology should serve national security. Fourth, switching costs. Once an organization has built its data, processes, and workflows on top of Palantir, leaving is genuinely painful. The platform becomes embedded in how the organization sees and operates. That kind of stickiness is rare. Put all of this together, and you get a company that is simply not playing the same game as Salesforce or Snowflake. Most software helps companies move faster. Palantir helps powerful institutions decide faster. That is a different category, and it explains both the admiration and the suspicion. And now we arrive at the part that makes this story genuinely about the future, not just the past. Because in the age of generative AI, every company is suddenly talking about chatbots, models, and automation. Most of that conversation is shallow. It is about demos, hype, and products that look smart for 10 minutes. Palantir is asking a different set of questions. How do you actually bring AI into a real workflow, not just a chat window? How do you make AI understand the messy, internal data of a specific organization? How do you make AI act inside controlled limits, instead of hallucinating its way through a critical decision? How do you keep humans in charge of the choices that really matter? AIP, the company's AI platform, is the answer it is offering. The pitch is that AI should not just be something you talk to, it should be something that operates inside a real environment, on real data, with real guardrails, and with humans approving the decisions that count. The ambition is enormous. AI for enterprises, AI for governments, AI for defense, AI for the actual operational reality where decisions get made under pressure. And this is where the climax of the story lands. If Palantir succeeds, it does not just become another software company riding the AI wave. It becomes the connective layer between data, AI, and decisions, the place where intelligence, in both senses of the word, gets translated into action. Think about what that means. It means the company that grew out of post-9/11 fear, that built its name on intelligence and defense, could become the default infrastructure for how institutions see, think, and act in the AI era. That is not a typical software outcome. That is something closer to a quiet form of power. It would be easy to stop here and let the story tilt fully into suspicion. But that would not be honest, because the world really is complicated, and Palantir really does solve real problems. The world runs on complex systems, hospitals, supply chains, energy grids, defense forces, disaster response teams, manufacturing networks. Most of these systems are full of data they cannot actually use. Information sits in silos, dies in old databases, gets lost between teams, or arrives too late to matter. When data is fragmented, decisions are slow and often wrong. People die in hospitals because the right information did not reach the right person. Supply chains break because warning signs were buried in a spreadsheet nobody opened. Crises spiral because agencies could not coordinate in time. A platform like Palantir, used well, can genuinely help. It can reduce waste. It can speed up response. It can spot risks before they explode. It can help different teams actually work together instead of past each other. The uncomfortable truth is that the same capabilities that make Palantir controversial are exactly what make it valuable. The clarity that worries people in the context of surveillance is the same clarity that saves lives in the context of an emergency room. You cannot have one without the other. That is the real dilemma, and pretending otherwise is just lazy thinking. So what is the bigger story here? Palantir is not just the story of one company. It is a symbol of a shift in what power looks like in the 21st century. Power used to be measured mostly in resources, armies, and capital. Those things still matter, of course, but increasingly, power is measured in something else: the ability to turn data into decisions, to see a situation faster than anyone else, to act with more clarity, in more places, with fewer blind spots. In that world, the question is no longer whether we should use data. We already do. The data is already being collected every minute of every day by systems most people will never see. The real questions are different and harder. Who controls the system? Who audits it? Who benefits from it? Who is affected by it? And critically, who has the right to say no? Palantir may be a software company on paper, but its real product is something much bigger: clarity for those who already have power. And in the age of AI, clarity might be the most powerful weapon of all. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Do you see Palantir as a necessary tool for a world that is genuinely more dangerous than it used to be? Or do you see it as a sign that power is becoming too dependent on data and AI with too few people watching the watchers? Drop your perspective in the comments. I read them. And if you want to keep going down this rabbit hole, the next video in this data and defense series is going to look at Anduril, the company trying to turn defense itself into a software startup. Different company, Same uncomfortable questions, even bigger stakes. See you there.